What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Tuffy Talk. We got a great episode for you today. We've already taken part of regionals, and the next step is super regionals. And we thought, who could we get that's been there, done that, has the T-shirt? And so we went with Mr. Brett Austin, Pac-9 alum, All-American, All-ACC, great player back in the day, was on the 2013 World Series team that made it to Omaha. Brett, thank you so much for joining us. How are we doing tonight?
Doing great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man. Let's just get right to it. I wanted to ask you, because I saw you on Sunday at the regionals there in Raleigh. Just give me your thoughts. Oh, by the way, I also didn't say that you used to be an assistant coach on Elliott Avent's team a few years ago. So a really good get for us again. But just kind of talk to me, give me your thoughts on the Raleigh regional, what you saw. And obviously we took a 3-0. It felt easy, but there was definitely some stressful times in there.
Yo, I agree. I'll preface this by saying no regional is really ever easy. JMU, they were pretty scrappy, and I think they were kind of plagued with some injuries. I talked to one of their coaches that actually played with at I think he went to Carolina, and I think they lost their Friday guy, and obviously South Carolina is a phenomenal program, but no, I thought the boys played well. They fired on all cylinders. I think with AMAC and Pennington, I like to call them the Bash Brothers. You got those two guys in the middle of your lineup. I think you're doing all right, and then you got Cozart and you got the young guys in the bullpen. Started pitching as well. I think they played extremely well, and what they're doing right now that I haven't seen in a while is that they're playing with a lot of confidence. It's like they actually believe in their ability, and I think they got rolling. When I called it the gauntlet, when they had Florida State, Virginia, and then Wake Forest. And to be honest, I didn't feel too good with those series, but we're looking up now, and the boys came ready to play and put themselves in a good spot.
Yeah, you say that, and listening to Coach Avent's press conferences, he basically was saying it was tournament time in those series that you just referenced, and to your point, they got in that right mindset. I kind of want to talk about the pitching a little bit. I thought that the starters did wonderful. Sam did a great job against Brian on Friday, and then Dom went out and did his thing Saturday against a good SEC opponent in South Carolina. And then you had Witt come back on Sunday, and I want to say that was probably his best, if not one of his top 2 or 3 appearances all year. I thought he could have even gone longer. But you had all those arms hanging out in the bullpen ready to rock, so there was no need to push it. So kind of give me your thoughts on all those pitchers over the past weekend.
No, I think you're spot on. Starting pitching's been phenomenal this year, and I think the bullpen's been even more elite, especially when you got Jacob Duden, Derek Smith, who's stepping up, pitching unbelievable right now, and just essentially throwing an invisible up there. But, you throw in Consiglio and those guys. I just reflect back to 2013, and Hart and I, we've had these conversations even back when I was coaching at NC State. I think the bullpen is the most valuable part of the game, especially in college. If you look back to our stats in 2013, I don't know exactly what we pitched at as a staff, but I would imagine it was probably pretty freaking good. And to look at these guys right now, it reminds me a lot of what we had back in 2013.
Yeah, I think you could even make the same kind of parallel with the 2021 team. When it was, if you got to the 5th or 6th inning, everyone, you knew who was coming in. It was like, okay, if you get to the 6th, either tied or a lead, you can go ahead and cancel Christmas. It was going to be a W for the Pack. You kind of mentioned some of the similarities, and I know you can't compare 2013 to 2024, but is there anything that you kind of see, whether it's, a particular player or a position group or anything that you can kind of, pull from?
No, it's actually funny you say that, because just reflecting back on conversations with Hart, I think the perfect recipe for success, especially for any college program, is older, established, experienced veterans with a young core group. And I think that's exactly what we had in 2013, and I think that's exactly what they have this year. I mean, if you think about the core freshmen with Consiglio, Duden, Luke Nixon, you got Alex Sosa, and probably I'm not forgetting or not remembering all the names, but if you combine that with the veteran group such as Logan Whitaker, who's been there, he's done that. You got Sam Highfill, even Dom Fritton. You throw all these guys in there, and I think with the leadership and the culture and what Coach Saban's been trying to build and what he has built over his tenure here at NC State, I think that's a perfect combination of what's happening again, and that's why they're having success.
Yeah. Macon or Michael, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to, you mentioned the 2013 regional. I'm just curious, Brett, what your memories are of that regional, what stands out to you from that experience? Because I'm just nostalgia, I guess.
I have a feeling that 17-inning ball game is going to come out of your mouth here any second.
That's one of the thoughts, but I'll be honest with you, the 2013 regional for me personally was not too good. I think I was 2 for 34 that postseason and offensively struggled, but in my mind I was sitting there thinking, okay, if I don't hit well, then I better catch well. Mm-hmm. And then that goes to the 17-inning game, and then a lot of people don't remember the 18-inning game, but maybe some do. 2 weeks before that in the ACC tournament against Carolina. So it was that one. It was a marathon, I'll tell you that. Yeah. But, like I said before, with the older guys and their experience and their leadership qualities, as well as having Trey Turner and Carlos Rodon, who are now worth a combined $500 million, I think it was a good team and a good mix. And we were young and we were hungry and we believed in ourselves. And, on paper, if you go around the starting 9 on paper, and I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but we were not great. But the intangibles of, like I said before, the leadership qualities and just having those guys kind of show us the ropes, and they've already been there, they've already done that. We just kind of followed their lead.
Yeah. And I guess to kind of go on that, maybe I'm kind of reharping on this question again, but you said the intangibles. Is that really the difference between what you see like in the teams that can make it further and deep in the runs? Is it that, the seniority leading the young core you mentioned, or is it more than that? Or is it just kind of, I'm curious what makes the teams that advance, is some of it luck involved? I'm sure some of it is a little bit, but I imagine there's things about each of these squads in 2013, 2021, and now that maybe are unique. I'm just kind of curious, is it more of it's that?
No, I think you're right. I think it's a culmination of things. I think, like I said, obviously talent, and then the experience, and then momentum. And then if you get hot at the right times, I mean, it's anybody's ball game. And I think more so, too, in the postseason, teams don't necessarily win games, but teams lose games, if that makes sense. I remember I had somebody tell me that at the Super Regionals or maybe even the College World Series, where the team that makes the least amount of mistakes usually come out on top. And right now, if you look at how we're playing, we're not making a whole lot of mistakes, and we're not punching out a lot. We're pitching extremely well. We're playing phenomenal defense, and the situational hitting's been there. And, I just think those are things that we've taught as a culture and as a program, and those guys are actually executing it.
Yeah. Michael, you got anything?
So getting a little ahead, but looking back at the 2013 Super Regional, is there a big difference between having that Super Regional at home? Obviously, you always want to play at home, but does that really? What's the difference between having that type of series, that big of a series at home versus on the road?
I think it's huge. I think if you're in the position to host a Super Regional, which in 2013 we were not, I think Rice ended up beating Oregon State, so we ended up hosting that regional, which playing in front of the Wolfpack fans was incredible. I think that place was as packed as I've ever seen it, except for this past regional. But playing on the road is definitely tough, and then playing in an SEC school or at an SEC school such as Georgia with their atmosphere and the fans they play in front of, I know it can get rowdy, but I think that's the fun part of it.
Did you ever play down in Georgia?
I'm actually going to go back. Go ahead.
Say that again?
Have you ever played at Foley?
I have not. No.
Okay. Go ahead, make it.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about here because you talked about how a few minutes ago how the strength of this team and how valuable the bullpen is. I'm curious because I'm also thinking kind of on this about how where State could still get better. And I think about this game against JMU. Maybe it was a fluke, but they left so many runners on base. I know even Carolina had a game Monday night where they left 12 guys on base. Again, State left 16 on base. that just kind of shows me that bullpen, if they're playing well, if you're not getting guys to generate all of those runs in, I guess one, where do you see Stick maybe improve there to kind of help get those generate more offense? But then two, is that just again how the bullpen emphasis there on how valuable that is and the strength of the team maybe right now in some ways?
Yeah, no, it's a great point you made. I think situational hitting and leaving runners on base, I'll preface all this by saying baseball's hard and hitting's hard. And sometimes as a player, I think the moment gets a little bit too big and we try to do too much. And one thing that Trey Turner has always, he always preached this, he'd always say, be a soldier, not a hero. And to me, how I took that, where when I was 2 for 34 in the regional, if it's first and second, like a lot of people do not remember this, but I do, where I was trying to provide value, I knew I could not get a hit to save my life, so I was going to put down a sac bunt. I was going to advance those runners, and hopefully the guy behind me could catch a run in. But I think it's just doing the small things from the offensive standpoint to get that extra base, to even get the dirt ball reads, to advance with the base running. All those different things play a huge factor, especially now in this point in the season, that you got to capitalize on. So. And obviously, too, if you can get that extra run here and there, and you bring in Derek Smith, or you bring in Jacob Duden, Consiglio, and the other guys, you're putting yourself in a good spot to win.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Yeah, everything you just mentioned, right? I could pick out a moment just for something you just mentioned, whether it was a Havner bunt in the game over the weekend, whether it was a Souls sacrifice, whether it was a Souls home run to give you that insurance run. I could probably pick a few more, but those are the ones off this old man's brain. And so, you're right, it's the little things. And you mentioned earlier not kicking the ball around the yard. I think we had maybe 2 errors the whole weekend. And so, again, it's all those things that you mentioned. But my next question was, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, especially being a previous catcher, or being a catcher in your previous life. Kind of talk to me about Cozart. Cozart had a big walk. He drew a walk on Saturday. Again, to your point, he didn't maybe hit his best, but just kind of give me your thoughts on him. And again, if you're not hitting the offense, you got to be a darn good catcher. Play good defense. He does that with the framing, blocking balls. Obviously, he probably doesn't call anything or very little, but kind of just talk to me through him and the importance of him, especially this weekend.
I think the value that Jacob Cozart adds to the team is invaluable. I think a lot of people overlook the importance of stealing strikes and how that equates to runs saved. And if you look back historically, freshman and sophomore year, he was top 2 or number 1 in the strikes looking above average, SL plus, which is just essentially the advanced metrics of the receiving. So he's elite back there, and I think he's grown a lot. And when you're catching as often as he's catching, which I've been there, 2013, I think I caught 99.5% of the innings, whatever it was, it takes a tear on your body, and the bat will struggle. And I think that's something that's good that he's learning now, because once he gets into pro ball, he'll be somewhat acclimated to that. But Cozart, I can't say enough good things about him. He's an absolute stud. He works his butt off. He's respectful. He wants to get better. And obviously there's some areas of improvement with his overall game that, heck, every player has. But to see the strides he's made in the 3 years that I've been watching him, and 2 of the years where I've coached him, it's fun to watch.
So speaking of that, I played catcher. I was a scrub catcher, but I played all through high school and in junior college. And then
Greg, you were a catcher?
I was. Yeah. Well, we won't tell you why, because my dad was the coach back in the day. And so I wasn't very good. And he said, if you want to play, go catch. No kid wanted to put all that gear on. But
don't blame you.
To my question, in your opinion, and I think what I was preaching, we probably share the same opinion. As far as catcher, offense or defense, what's more important? Because you see those catchers that have a lot of power numbers, but they may not be the best defensive. So kind of give me your thoughts, because you hear people like sitting in the stands, you hear like, well, Cozart's struggling or this or that. And so I always say to me, it's defense. Like if that's the most important part from a catcher perspective. What do you say about that?
No, I think you're pretty spot on with it. I think it's a weird dynamic because in college, if we'll reflect back to Kyle Schwarber, who probably couldn't even hold Jacob Cozart's shock strap as a catcher defensively in college, but he could really hit. And so obviously that got him a lot of money in the draft. And then you look up a couple years later, he's in the big leagues. He caught for a little bit, and then he switched to left field, right field. But to your point, I think defense is the most important part of it. And to even go further into that, I think managing a staff is arguably the most important thing. And that's probably one of the biggest things we worked on when I was there at NC State, where obviously we work on the big three: receiving, blocking, throwing. Then you got your smaller nuances of the position, fielding the bunts, catcher pop-ups. But managing the staff, especially once you get into pro ball and also calling a game, I think those two are the separators if you want to play this game for a very long time back behind the plate.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Go ahead, Michael.
You talked about stealing strikes. What makes a catcher so good at that? Is it the glove movement, the body positioning? Is it you schmoozing up the ump? Or
Schmoozing up the ump, I like that one.
It's part of it. It's part of it. I think a lot of it is God-given, but like you said, the angles, your pre-pitch move, beating the ball to the spot, the glove movement, having communication with the umpire to where, let's say, like Cozart, he would set up usually not even black on the plate, but usually in between the black and the white line of the other's batter's box. And then you try to see how far you can go to get those pitches. And then you have that dialogue with the umpire and say, hey, is that as far out as you'll go, or is there a little bit more? So you understand the zones. But now I think Cozart, it's funny you bring that up because I think Cozart this year has the track record of stealing a lot of strikes. His freshman, sophomore year. I've heard a story. It's unconfirmed, and someone can fact check me on this, but I've heard Pollard back during the Duke series had some words with the umpire saying, hey, Jacob Cozart's the best at stealing strikes. Don't let him do that. So he's earned that track record. He's earned that reputation, but it's a real thing. And like you said, there's a lot of nuances that go into it with, like you said, body positioning, weight distribution, how quick can you move the glove, your attack angle with your thumb and your elbow, all these different things go into it, and he does it exceptionally well, but he's also worked very hard at it.
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking now, so like just more like big picture, talk about NC State's regional, then South Carolina, Bryan, and JMU, but is there any other regionals that you got to watch this weekend that were kind of interesting for you to watch, and maybe something interesting like for me, Evansville, seeing Wake and ECU have a winner go home game real early, and then Evansville comes out of that regional. That's one that stands out to me. But is there anything for you that you thought was interesting?
I watched a couple of the games on ESPN Plus, and I think the one that sticks out to me was the LSU-UNC elimination game, the final game. And going back to my point earlier where teams don't necessarily win games, but the other teams lose it. And I feel bad for the right fielder just because he missed the fly ball in right field. But
Shades of Arkansas in 2020 or 2018, I think it was. Yeah.
And these things happen. But when you're playing good teams like this, you cannot give up any extra free bases. You can't give them any extra outs because good teams will capitalize on that. But like you guys said, the ECU Wake Forest one was wild and good for Evansville for playing good baseball. I watched a little bit of that game where the guy hit the go-ahead 3-run home run, and then their center fielder made an unbelievable play the following inning, diving, laying out, and they just didn't make any mistakes, and that's the key to it.
Yeah, and I'm looking across the country. I mean, ACC baseball had 5 teams get in right to these regionals. I mean, I think that was the most in the country out of one conference. Playing in the ACC, I mean, is ACC, the best baseball conference to you, or is it? I mean, I know SEC's got big money a lot of times, but like ACC, it seems to me consistently is the top, or one of the top conference, maybe top 2 between them and the SEC. So I'm curious what your thoughts are playing in it.
No, I think you're right. My unbiased opinion is that the SEC is better through and through, top to bottom.
Sure.
Just depending on the year. I think there's a couple of teams at the bottom of the ACC that especially this year, maybe with the Boston College, with the new staff and everything else, Boston College historically has been very phenomenal as a program, but I think top to bottom, the SEC may be a tick better, but the flip side of it, I think if you put the top of the ACC versus the top of the SEC, anybody can win those games.
Yeah. And then I think looking forward to it, talking about the regionals we just watched, now going up against Georgia. I don't know, Greg, if I'm getting ahead of myself with the next session.
Let me just ask this question, then we're gonna pause and we'll take right into this. So between all those freshman arms that we have, and I know you were on staff and you've got to know a little bit about them, whether it was help recruiting them. You have Ryan Marone, Jacob Duden, Cooper Consiglio. I feel like I'm missing one more. I'm missing another of the freshman pitchers.
Jackson Lucas.
Jackson Lucas. Yeah. Thank you. Heath Andrews. So just kind of talk to me the importance of them kind of, and, they are playing a lot of those guys key roles in this. Just kind of their maturity from the freshman, from the beginning of the season to now. What have you seen in them to allow them to be such a pivotal piece of this team?
I think that's a good point. I think if you look back earlier in the season, the pitching struggled a little bit, and for some of these younger guys getting acclimated to the college baseball game coming out of high school, it's a drastic difference, and a lot of people don't understand that. But the adversity and maybe the failure that they faced early in the year has set them up to, one, endure that. So if it ever happens again, they can bounce back a lot quicker. And I think that's exactly what they've done over the course of this season is they figured out what might have worked, what may not work, what worked in high school may not work here. So, it's a pretty complex situation with that, but just to see these guys coming out and how poised they look with Consiglio. Consiglio to me has been probably one of the biggest, not surprises, but to see what he's been able to do. I think ever since Florida State was the first time that I saw him really kind of burst onto the scenes, it's been incredible to watch. And I just think when you have success like that, obviously it's the power of momentum and stacking those small wins, and that creates confidence. And if you go out there and look at what all of them have been able to do, that's exactly what they have. They're displaying confidence at a very high level.
Yeah, I think for Coop, it was the Clemson game where he kind of just, he shut it down, and and then Florida State was the following weekend, and it's been impressive. These guys have embraced their roles. They've come in and I think the one thing for me is they have short-term memory. If they give up a long ball, they'll come right back in. I remember Jacob Duden against UVA gave up a long ball, and I think he came back and struck the next two out. Like, it didn't even phase them. So they have that fortitude and that mentality that they're just going to go out and get it done. So I think that's going to be the biggest matchup for me. But speaking of the matchup, I think we're going to pause here, end episode 1. And then we're going to jump in and talk, really get into this, because I was diving into some numbers, and it looks like it's going to be a fun matchup this weekend down in Athens. So Wolfpack Nation, make sure you jump on for episode 2. And in the meantime, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and hitting all those bells, and hitting us up on X. And as always, we appreciate you. And as we say around here, go Pack.